Good morning, Ratman. I'm your host, Che, and I almost lost 2 fights with the ocean back to back and now refuse to enter the sea. And Fishman is my co-host, Corgi.
Dude, I can't. I thought I knew you.
Today's episode is brought to you by rats. Sorry, we're late. We missed last week. Technical difficulties. But we are recording 2 episodes today and then 2 the next time, which will hopefully put us a week behind so we won't be late anymore. Corgi.
It's my bad. I had a headset and then it didn't work.
To be fair,
and we found out that it doesn't work on my computer.
Australia Post also pulled the classic Australia Post of not delivering the thing. Just an iconic Australia Post moment. I sent Corgi a picture the day that it was due to arrive and then didn't arrive, that someone posted on the Australian subreddit of the Australia Post van pulling up to their car, parking in front of their house for 5 seconds, and then driving off. Not making an attempt to deliver anything. And then it was logged as delivery attempted. This is a standard occurrence with Australia Post. So, way back when Sigmar had just come out, I read a little into it.
Oh, good for him.
Okay. That's another keeping some long silence there. Fuck, you threw me off. Jesus fucking Christ.
I'm teaching you to be better at speaking, because I throw you off.
When it just come out, I read a little bit into it, and I just stumbled across the Idoneth Deepkin and read a little tiny bit of their lore and went, that sounds awesome. I'll dig into this later. And then, classic me, never did that. So, and then when I started this podcast and I decided to also include fantasy, they were the first topic I wanted to do outside of the Skaven because, we did fantasy because I came up with the name. So I was like, well, I got to do the Skaven, and then I enjoyed the Skaven. So I was like, oh, let's keep doing Skaven. But because of 4th edition, we also did the Stormcast due to the timing. And then Bretonia, because I wrote that as a backup episode in case Corgi couldn't show up. But then I just really wanted to talk about the France thing. But so that's why that came out when it did. And here we are. And I am excited. I got to look into their lore, and I love it. It was so fun. I have many thoughts we'll talk about at the end of the video.
As it usually goes.
So you're ready for some history, Corgi? Way back in Warhammer Fantasy, which is like fantasy, not Age of Sigmar, old world fantasy.
Skyrim fantasy.
Yep. There was an elf called Teclis.
Teclis, is that like Legolas, but in the medieval times?
But he was a nerd and not important. He was actually very important, but what he got up to in Old World isn't important now. What is important is that he's a god now. He's one of the elven gods and still a fucking nerd.
I'm not gonna lie, I heard you say elven, but my brain also auto-corrected it to oven, and now I'm just imagining a bunch of elves just baking in an oven.
Well, funny you should say that. So, Slanesh, big fan of elf souls. Their long lifespans and heightened senses. My voice cracked during that line.
Go again.
The long lifespans and heightened senses.
I think just Christopher Walken.
I'm sorry? Have you ever watched a Christopher Walken movie? I don't think they like being called that. I think they prefer the term homos. I'm not going to say the rest of that line.
Homosexual.
Look up 7 Psychopaths. Christopher Walken is great. Put your hands up.
I don't want to.
No. But I have a gun. I don't want to. Anyway. So, their long lifespans and heightened senses produce, I quote, the sweetest spirit stuff. There's a lot
stickiest of ickies.
There's a lot of souls being described as stuff, and I understand it's an applicable term, but it's so funny reading this, and it's like, oh, and these people did this, and they gained the sight so that they could determine the curse by looking at their spirit stuff. It's like, okay.
The stickiest of elf ickies.
But elf spirit stuff is allegedly a delicacy. It's fucking preem. And then when end times happened, and the world blew up, Slaanesh ate most of the elf souls and then kind of went into a food coma.
Oh, fucking me too, man.
I knew you were going to say something about that line.
It's almost as if I'm predictable.
So, the new elf gods, Teclis, Tyrion, Malarion, and Marathi...
Sorry. Malarion?
Malarion. We talked about Malarion.
Yeah, but I'm just like, I hear it and my brain just thinks malaria.
Yeah. Formerly known as Malakath, now Malarion, probably due to legal reasons. And his mother, Marathi, who wasn't a god, thought she was. She eventually becomes a god. We'll get to that. But
wait, she thought she was?
No, I thought she was.
Oh.
Because like every single time like I looked her up, it was just like, yeah, she's a deity. And I'm like, oh, yeah, okay. So she was one of the elves that she survived the end times by becoming a god. And then researching this video, it was like, no, she just jumped ship. She just survived end times and made it into the new universe. She's not a god. She becomes a god eventually, but not a god to begin with.
No, she had so much faith in herself, she fucking ascended.
Oh, we'll get to how she ascended. It's relevant. But they went on an elf quest to find the elves in the mortal realm.
Elf quest to find elves, not just like a, hey bro, you finally turned 200, time to go find your elk.
Yeah, they're trying to find where all the elves went. And they couldn't find any. But they did meet Sigmar. So they joined the Pantheon of Order to help Sigmar do his whole create civilization with the otherwise scattered tribes of humans and dwarves. And they did eventually find some elves.
But the elves alright?
Yeah, they seem fine. But they aren't important to the story, so fuck them. What is important is they found Slaanesh passed out in the back alley of a cheap buffet restaurant, a sizzler if you're Australian, and like in the past 15 years ago. So, with great danger and perfectly executed spellcraft, they put a bag over his head, shoved him in a white van, and dumped him in the void between Hysh and Ulgu, where he remains to this day.
Hey, we found this fucking deity, right? And he was fucking passed out. He was zonked out on the stickiest of ickies. What if we just dump him? Like, what if we just move him somewhere while he's sleeping? Would it be, like, totally freaked out?
I like the idea that, you know, they've gone on this elf quest, and then they're just walking downtown, and, you know, they're just like, man, we found some elves, but they're not the elves that we were looking for. That sucks. And then one of them just looks down the alley and sees Slaanesh passed out, and they're like, holy shit! That's him! Fucking get him! And Slaanesh wakes up from this, and is like, oh no! And just can't move, because it's so full of elf souls. And they're just sort of flailing wildly as they just start kicking the shit out of him. And then dragging him into a white van.
Then I feel like if in fucking Lord of the Rings they stumbled across the Uruk-hai, like, way too early, they're just, like, sleeping it off, and they're like, what if we just dump him in this fucking volcano?
They roll him up into a fucking carpet and just start fucking kicking it down the street. Rolls it down. As a tangent, my dad once told me a story about when he was younger and he was helping a friend move out, and they rolled up a futon, and they were walking the futon to the car, and it slipped out of one of their hands and it fell on the floor, and my dad was just like, oh, I got a really funny idea. So while they were, like, going to get it, my dad just, like, ran up and started kicking it. Go, shut the fuck up! Shut the fuck up, man! Shut the fuck up! Just kicking the food in the middle of the street, broad daylight, yelling, shut the fuck up! And all of his friends looked at him and they went, nah, this is fucking hilarious. So they all started kicking the rolled up futon, just yelling, shut the fuck up, man! Shut the fuck up!
Hold on, and they were moving out of that place, right?
Yeah.
Imagine just the neighbours. You're thinking, oh wow, it's a shame to see them go. They were such good neighbours. And then you just hear that, you peek out your window and you're like, well, good thing they're leaving.
Anyway, they, you know, tied him to the chair, started playing some Stuck in the Middle with You, and tortured him and extracted the souls of the elves from his essence.
They waterboarded him until he fucking puked him out?
Yeah. And...
Give us our friends!
The 4 gods, 3 gods and 1 future-to-be god, made an agreement that they would each get a share of the souls to do with as they saw fit.
Wait,
Presumably.
so, hang on. No, they were doing this to Slaanesh, right?
Huh?
They were doing this to Slaanesh, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So fucking there's every chance that Slaanesh just popped one that whole time, and they just had to awkwardly work around it.
Yeah, I mean, Slaanesh is the god of excess and pleasure and that, so I would imagine Slaanesh was having a good time. But they made an agreement that they would each get a share of the souls to do with as they saw fit. Presumably, Slaanesh also tried to get on this deal, only to be in turn tortured some more.
So full of just Slaanesh just going, that's hot.
I would imagine it's less, oh, that's hot, and more, what is wrong with Michael Jackson? Which is a reference you're not going to get. And it's a reference most people aren't going to get.
Yeah, I barely even understand it to begin with. I just hear Michael Jackson and I'm just... shit. There was this game where you, got invited to a club by Michael Jackson. That's just what I'm thinking of. I don't remember.
I'm pretty sure it's either George Clooney or the lead singer of Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch in that scene.
Oh my god. Farky Mark?
It's jumper cables to the balls. Great movie, by the way. Terrible man who directed that movie. A horrible, horrible human being. But good movie.
I am so not drawing that.
You don't want to draw an elf?
No.
Attaching jumper cables to Slaanesh's balls, hitting him with the what is wrong with Michael Jackson?
And that's when this podcast became a solo cast.
Weak! Coward!
I have standards. Very low.
Do you?
Very, very low. But even I know where to draw the line, and that's at cock and ball torture.
Weak.
Not to yuck anyone's yum, but...
Weak!
Fine, then you draw it. You draw fucking jumper cables attached to fucking Slaanesh balls.
No. I'm not the artist of this show. You are.
You could be.
I put away my drawing pad literally 4 weeks ago. If you had asked me then, maybe I could have. But it's gone now, so I'm no longer drawing. Anyway. Now, Teclis got the first batch of spiritual essence and used the Ocarian lantern. I keep wanting to put a T in it. I keep wanting to say Octarian, but it's Ocarian lantern.
I just think Ocarina.
Yeah, I also thought Ocarina. So he would use the Ocarian lantern to draw them into the light, whatever that means, and he used the light spiritual essence to remake Aelves into the version he fondly remembers. And I quote, a pack of pretentious holier-than-thou cunts who think they are better than everyone else and are bright of spirit. Exact words in the battle tome. It was kind of weird. But...
just like high school.
He named this creation the Sithai, or Cathai. I don't know how it's supposed to be pronounced, but I'll probably be pronouncing it soft C the entire time.
You're a soft C. Also
known as the Awakened. I think Sithai means awakened in elf tongue.
Zathai just... It sounds like a topical cream. Honey, have you put your Zathai on yet? Oh,
well, that's because you're pronouncing it with a Z, and it's S. It's a C. Sithai. Not Zathai.
Zathar, same thing, really. Anyway, point is, I'm just imagining a giant fucking bug zapper luring in the bug souls of elves.
I'm just imagining a weird German. What is your favorite part of the woman? Mine is the thigh.
I hate that.
I'm a beacon of humor.
Yeah, and I'm a paragon of speaking.
So, he built them a city called Liriu. The city won't come up again.
The motherfucker, you tell me that lame-ass name. I was expecting something cool. Like Carcosa, but no, I just get...
I think there's one that's dangerously close to Carcosa, but I'm not 100p on it.
Give it to me. Give me my lost card
Liru
cursor.
sounds a lot like Lemuria, or dangerously close to Lemuria, that I wouldn't be surprised if they worked backwards from it. Anyway, Teclis taught the Sithai of their past and the dead pantheon, hoping that with a new age of worshippers, it might revive the dead gods. This kind of comes up, but I didn't write about it. They worship the old god of the sea.
Good
Yeah.
old I'm just assuming that their gods all sound like someone with a freaking lisp trying to pronounce onomatopoeia. Because so far, that's just what they sound like to me.
So far, you're not far off. You
Oh my
went,
God.
and I'm like, did you Google this in advance? The name starts with M.
Murmel.
Hold up, I'll check it. Warhammer Old World Elf God Sea. Matlan.
Mathland. What?
Yeah.
That's just a fucking mathlete trying to sound cooler than it is.
I don't think we have a thing in education called Matlan.
No, mathletics.
Yeah, I mean, like, you know, I think I was going to reference something, but I think it's a state thing. I think it's something that only my state does, so never mind. It's not even a reference you would understand. So, the Sithai didn't really like Teclis and withdrew from him. And
he fucking revives them, and that's how they fucking repay him, just full on, thanks.
well, remember how I said he's a fucking nerd?
Yeah, so are you, but I still put up with you.
Yeah, I mean, you're worse than me.
Oh, so true.
You used Tumblr.
Use.
That's worse. You know, you see how that's worse, right?
Yep. But the difference is I know I'm cringe.
I had several people recommend Tumblr to me, and they were like, "You'll like it." And then I would use Tumblr for all of 2 weeks and go, "I don't see the point in this. I don't get it. What is the purpose? It's a bunch of fucking losers being fucking losers." And just be like, "I love this show," and not engaging within that show in any degree of like critical analysis. Not like in a pretentious sort of critical analysis. It's just like every episode is the best episode ever, and not like, man, this show sucks at the moment. This was a bad episode. Like the existing as a Doctor Who fan at the same time Tumblr was existing as a Doctor Who fan was wild. Well, I would watch an episode and go, that episode fucking sucked, and then it would be immediately followed by a fucking amazing episode. And then you'd see Tumblr people be like, both episodes were amazing. Oh my god, I love this character. River Song is the best character to ever appear on Doctor Who, and she's one of the worst.
It's good to get it out. This is therapy. Fucked up therapy. Also, you said it was Malarion who was the giant nerd, right?
No, Teclis.
Teclis. Can you send that to me, the how you spell it?
No, because it's funny to watch how you attempt to spell things.
Fine then, I'll spell it stupid.
So the Sithai didn't really like Teclis and withdrew from him, and they would also fight amongst themselves and splintered into factions. So Teclis, trying to figure out what was going on, did some god magic to take a look at their souls, and instead of the light he expected from the elves, the souls had a dark shadow that Teclis couldn't see into, which, valid. If I got vored by a dark god and then resurrected, and then God decided I was going to be the perfect elf and didn't give me time or any form of psychological therapy for my soul, that would be pretty dark too.
Man, that episode of The Good Place is weird. Cut that out.
I think I would have made the exact same decisions the Sithai are about to make.
What, did they just fucking crucify him? Just to get him to shut up?
So then, after all this, after Teclis discovered the little darkness in their souls, Teclis, the smartest god in the world, decided he would just start casting purifying magic all willy-nilly without telling anyone, hoping it would cure the darkness. This drove a decent chunk mad. My voice broke again.
Go again.
This drove a decent chunk mad. Like, imagine for a minute you got vored by a dark god, then came back and you're not doing great because everything. Then your god came up to you and went, "Hey, you see your soul is dark? Yeah? Lighthouse! Bah!" And your soul just gets flashbanged. Where, yeah, I can definitely see how that would fuck you up.
Yeah, just your god being like, I thought you were going to be so much more, but you're just a disappointment. And you're like, fucking, hey, I didn't ask to be brought back. The shit's wrong with you?
But moving on from soul flashbangs, the rest of the Sithai are watching Teclis walk around casting Soul Lighthouse, driving people mad, and they already aren't on good terms, so they think, oh, he's trying to kill us, and fled to the place they thought was the hardest to find them. The bottom of the ocean.
He'll never find us here. Down in the... God, fuck, no, I was gonna make a good joke.
Bodied.
Oh, fuck.
Bodied. They also stole the Ocarian lantern and buried it at the bottom of the Marianas Trench of Giran. So deep that its magic is smothered so Teclis can't use it to find them in the abyss.
They fucking stole the bug zapper and were like, I'm sick of this shit fucking zapping us. Let's just bury it. Yeah, where are we gonna bury it? Ocean. Do you reckon there's just a bunch of, like, anglerfish circling it? Like some sort of deity?
We'll get to what happens with the Ocarian lantern.
Hold on, I'm gonna draw that now.
The thing is, Teclis didn't intend to kill them. He just wanted to help. However, after this, he very much wanted to kill them because of the whole soul thing worried him. And Tyrion had to step in and be like, hey, bro, leave him alone. You fucked it. Accept it. Move on. Which, to Teclis's credit, he did.
But for how long, though?
Well, as so far.
I doubt it's gonna last. He seems like the kind of dick that's like, oh, you fucking bested me for now, but I'll be back, Batman, or some shit.
But Teclis has put things in place to prepare if they ever come back and try to kill him. So he is very much expecting them to try and kill him.
Honestly, don't blame him. They were dead. They just brought him back.
But part of the reason that they live underwater is to escape Teclis. But the other reason they stayed underwater is much more sad. It's a trauma response. All the Sithai have memory of being consumed by Slaanesh and imprisoned, they're burnt into their souls. And Slaanesh is the god of excess and feeds on the extremes of sensation, so they fled to somewhere absent of all sensation. The abyss is too dark to see, it's too cold to feel, and the absence of everything smothers all emotion. And for a while they just closed themselves off, and I quote, withdrew to the deepest recesses of their mind, locking out all stimuli. Only once... Yeah, it's really sad. It was like, oh, oh, that's...
I thought it was going to be because, like, being underwater reminded them of being in stomach bile.
No, it's because they just don't want to get hurt again.
And this is why you treat your reborn elves good.
They have a soul memory of a horrible fate. It's like if you died, went to hell for hundreds of thousands of years, and then got resurrected, and they're like, yeah, sorry, our bad. Have a good life, I guess. Cool. Cool.
That would be terrifying, though, to remember your death.
Not just death, but your torture for what felt like an eternity. You're just... Cool.
I'm pretty sure there's an SCP about that. Like the end of death.
And Teclis was really like, ooh, I don't know why these guys have darkness in their soul. I don't know. Maybe it was everything that happened to him.
Yeah, you expect someone to be pure after torture?
But yeah, only once when they felt safe did they actually start to explore the ocean and their new home. So once the Sithai settled at the bottom of the ocean, they decided to split up because it would be harder for Teclis to kill them all if they're all in different places. It also helped that they now started to hate each other because they had different ideas of what to do with their species, and because, I quote, buried traumas, which is probably the whole Vord thing, and watching your family get soul flashbanged.
Honestly, kind of like that, because it sounds like barotrauma, which is 100% something that would happen to them under the ocean.
So they set out through the Whirlways, which are underwater realm gates, and colonized the seas of the 8 realms, And while they didn't like each other and had very rigid boundaries, they kept in contact with each other and promised to unite as one to face any existential threats. Also, sometimes the whaleways would just take you to the bottom of the lake. So even if you're in a landlocked area, you're still not safe from the Idoneth. But for the most part, the Deepkin never really travelled far. They were created in Hysh and mostly settled the depths of Hysh, though they are wherever there is an ocean across the 8 realms.
And that brings us back to Britonia. Because guess what, motherfuckers? It was one of them. Around. It was them all along.
As an aside, the battle tome mentions that there's a wreck of a Sky Dwarf airship at the bottom of the sea, and the Sky Dwarves are desperately trying to recover its mysterious cargo. Don't know what that's about, but I'm excited to learn about it, but it'll probably have very little information, and I probably won't know what's in the cargo.
Get dunked on.
So, if you're wondering, how are the elves living at the bottom of the ocean? It's magic.
Oh, I was going to say, probably in houses.
They use magic so they can breathe underwater and resist pressure, and some of them have developed soul sight ability, which allows them to see souls, which comes in handy later. The Sithai would occasionally be afflicted by the Malachi, which is, quote, a state of raging madness that ends in savage debauchery.
Just like Florida.
This never comes up again. It's referenced once again later, but it is never referenced again in the battle tome. I don't know what its deal is. It's like they came up with an idea and then went, too much to deal with this. So it's a thing. It doesn't come up again. So we'll move on from that. However, once they started having kids, then the problems began to become apparent, because almost none of them survived. Now, the elves with soul sight could see that the babies' souls were quickly decaying, and when they decayed, they died, and only 1 in 100 children survived. So the Sithai, who had taken to calling themselves Idoneth, meaning extreme seclusion, had to go with its other meaning, desperate measures.
They just wanted to rebuild their lives, and they just couldn't.
There's a couple times reading this where it's like, oh, they're named after this elven word, which has 2 meanings. It means this thing and this thing. And it's just like, no, it doesn't. You made it up. Every time it's like, it could mean extreme seclusion, desperate measures, and funky beach party. All you need to do is say that it means funky beach party. And it also means funky beach party.
Yeah, what is this, fucking Cantonese?
Don't hit me with this word has 2 meanings. No, it doesn't. You made it up. You made up the word, so you made up its definitions. And sometimes it's 2 meanings not even closely related. I could get how extreme seclusion and desperate measures could be related, but there's another one. I don't remember if I wrote it down, but not even close. Not even close to meaning the same thing.
Big friendship can also mean extreme betrayal. Like that sort of energy.
Kinda, yeah. So, the Idoneth then tried to solve the problem with magic, and it didn't work. Until, that is, someone discovered how to rip the life force from a living thing and place it into something else.
Oh, they were just doing it so they could have kids.
They thought this would be a simple solution. They just take the souls from the underwater creatures, but the life energy wasn't enough and it dissipated within days. So, they set their sights on the surface and started taking souls from humans, elves, dwarves, and orcs. But it wasn't a perfect transference, and different species were different in efficiency, efficacy. They were different in efficacy. And the example given was 6 humans would be enough to grant 1 elf 1/3 of their normal lifespan.
Hang on, so don't elves live forever? So all you'd need is 3 humans per elf?
Not really. They're supposed to live forever, but then it's like, ooh, they've got a normal lifespan. The average Idoneth lives for 40 years.
So 1/3 of 40 is... Not even gonna bother.
No, so the Idoneth that have the imperfect souls live for 40 years. So 1/3 would mean they would live for about 120 years. But then there are other Sithai or perfect Idoneth that are ageless. So it seems like the standard the standard Idoneth are ageless, they live forever. if you're one of the Namadi, we'll get to them. They're the ones with the corrupted souls. They'll live for 120 years, but usually they live for 40.
Oh, I see.
Maybe. But
If they're lucky.
Yeah, it listed 40 as being around their average lifespan. But this, however, created a feedback loop where they needed raids to save the lives of the Idoneth, but because their population boomed, now that they could have kids, they needed to do more raids, so that started as the occasional small raid has become almost constant raids. They also try to avoid raiding the Lumineth Elves, because those are Teclis's new elves, and they want to avoid attracting as much attention from him as they possibly can.
Yeah, and how'd that go?
So far, pretty well. So this has led to a caste system developing, with the aforementioned Namati, the Blessed, and the Damned, is what it means. That's what I mean. It means two words. It means blessed, and it also means damned. No, it doesn't. Those are two different things. Fuck you.
Well, I guess if
Make
you
up a better language.
If you want to see it from their perspective, it could be like, oh, well, a devil is blessed by hell. No, that's still fucking stupid. What was they fucking thinking?
Yeah, it's stupid. Stupid. Whoever came up with that, you weren't cooking. Write better.
You weren't cooking, you were fucking burning it.
And the Namadi are the bottom of the rung elves in perfect form. They have otherwise perfect form, apart from the corrupted souls. However, for some reason, they don't have eyes.
Well,
It's never explained why they don't have eyes. It's just like, then they don't have eyes. I'm just like, what? And I tried to find out why they don't have eyes. They don't have eyes.
but hang on, did the Namadi become a thing before or after they lived in the ocean?
The Namadi are the elves that have corrupted souls. They're the 99 of the 100 that will die at childbirth unless they get soul transferences.
So that means they were born under the ocean. That
Yes,
makes sense
yes,
because
they
they
were-
wouldn't exactly need the eyes. You
But
don't
other
need eyes.
elves that are the non-Namadi elves that are born under the ocean have eyes. It's only the Namadi that don't have eyes. It's only the soul corrupt don't have eyes. Why? Why don't they have eyes? Who took their eyes?
Give them back! Well, if you're cursed, you don't need to see because you can't see the promised land.
And they also have a greatly reduced lifespan. The lifespan thing, we know why. It's just the eye thing. I can't stress how much. Maybe they explained the eye thing in a book that I didn't read because they have a whole 200-page book. If you're watching this and you know about the eye thing and you know why they don't have eyes, please tell me. Why don't they have eyes? Where did their eyes go?
Who took them?
It doesn't impede them much. They just sort of kind of daredevil it out, sensing pressure and current changes and the sort of electroreception field thing that sharks have. Mm-hmm. The Namadi, they're mostly just used for laborers and craftsmen or soldiers, and while being seen as tainted,
they're probably the most perfect ones, and they're still just like, this fucker got no eyes. He don't count as a fucking person.
Oh, yeah, and they're seen as tainted by the lower cultured and barbaric souls that they have to consume. So because they're eating other people's souls, it's oh, they're barbarians because they have human souls. Kind of a dick move.
Man, so they don't have eyes, they don't have souls. What do they have? Fantastic hair?
They do have souls, they just have deeply corrupted souls that fade very quickly.
Which basically don't even count.
They also carry eldritch markings on their head, which is used for the soul transference. So they'll have tattooed foreheads because they're just getting souls put into them.
Little edgy fuckers.
Yeah. On the other hand, the Akhelians and Isharan, both of which are the noble class, who are the 1 in 100 with intact souls.
Fancy pants Rush McGee over there.
I realized that I wrote Akhelian and then I wrote Akhelian again, and they're two different spellings and I don't know which one's the correct one.
Google it.
So I wrote Akhelian the first time. This is Akhelian. The Akhelian
alkaline. I know that.
Are warrior castes who made up of are a warrior caste who made up the lords, princes, and commanders of the Idoneth. They undergo decades of training with warfare and trials to harden them, which vary from enclave to enclave. I just pronounced enclave 2 different ways.
Yeah, I thought that was intentional.
I didn't mean that. As they grow in experience, they are promoted from positions with the ultimate goal of being given command a whole army by the elders, which also grants them the title of king or queen. And if you don't get the trust of the elders, you get put in charge of the battle slaves with the title Thrall Master. The Isherin, on the other hand, are wizards. There is something about their souls that soul scryers can see when they're born, and they'll become wizards, so they get to go to underwater wizard school so they can learn that wizard magic and learn what wizard magic they're good at and are trained in that role. These roles aren't hereditary as well, so an Achelian couple can have an Amadi child and an Amadi couple can have an Achelian child.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not having these dynastic expanses. It's just whichever family ends up in whatever family. Or your kid ends up in whatever caste that they're born into. With maybe you have a kid without eyes, then you're like, they're going in the pit.
Ah, yes. Just like the fucking... No, I'm blanking so much today. I was gonna say Spartans.
Spartans?
Yeah, Spartans. If the kid's fucked, off you go, time to die.
Anyway, the Deepkin have maintained an isolationist policy for pretty much all of their history and tried to keep themselves secret. Their existence is a myth to the surface world. However, recently, when going out for raids, they have been met by Chaos, who has laid a trap for them.
God damn it, Chaos. How do you always know?
Sometimes, their cities even get attacked by the forces of Chaos and Nagash, and recently, orcs. So, because of this, they've started to reach out to the other forces of order and make begrudging alliances. The alternative is facing Chaos completely alone. And here's a quote that I really liked. It's a long quote rather than the sentence quotes that I've been doing up until this point. New borders must be established and a fragile peace maintained with those whom the Idoneth once viewed as prey. Such will not be easy, for they are, at heart, a militant and secretive people, rendered cold and unyielding by the harshness of their undersea existence. Yet, if there is one race that long ago committed to paying any price for survival, no matter how grave, it is the Idoneth Deepkin. Good quote.
Oh, guys. They just want to fucking have a break, but no. Now all of a sudden they have to fight off Chaos who... Hang on, you said Slanesh, right? I'm just imagining being so spiteful of your leftovers that you're going, you know what? Get back in my belly.
They do occasionally get fucked up by Slaneshi cults who are just like, where's Slanesh? Where's fucking Slanesh? Tell me where fucking Slanesh is!
I don't know. You were in the belly. You gotta know something.
So they weren't exactly welcomed with open arms. A bit more on that later. But the Idoneth use magic to wipe the minds of people that they raid. And also, apparently, sometimes they just go to sleep. I think I talk about it a little bit later, but it never really comes up. It just keeps them mentioning, yeah, and then they go to sleep and they never wake up. What? It never expands on this. It just casually mentions, like, yeah, the sleep magic. No, I don't know the sleep magic. Please explain the sleep magic. Yeah, it's just, the sleep magic. Cool. They've got sleep magic.
No, just you wake up one day, you're fucking hungry, you go to your kitchen, the pantry's empty, and you're just sitting there going, what the fuck, I had supplies last night, and you think you've had your house broken into, but everything is sealed up nice and tight, and then you just see a note on your fridge. It's
more you go to a city, and then you come back to your village with the supplies that you bought from the city, and half of the population is missing, and the other half are deep asleep, and none of them will ever wake up again. Cool.
Just like Florida.
And like the few that are still awake, they just like, I don't know, man. You're like, what do you mean you don't know? And they go, bah. There was a fog, and then I woke up, and 3 days had passed. I don't know, man. I don't know what happened.
And then I went to sleep.
But because of this, their attacks have become vague stories. However, people did immediately connect the dots of, hey, maybe the sea elves might be the same thing from myth that keep attacking our coastal towns.
Well, to be fucking fair, we don't blame tsunamis on hippocampi. Or do we?
But they allied, nonetheless, and they helped the Deepkin fight back several sieges, including a 6-year siege of an enclave by the Skaven, which we're going to talk about for a hot moment. Thank you to Katie and Colors for bringing this to my attention in I think a Skaven video. But the Skaven, at the request of Archon the Everchosen, set out to find the Deepkin. So they killed a bunch of sea monsters and turned their corpse into ships called Kark ships and created warp mercibles. They then invaded and destroyed a Deepkin city and otherwise just caused a whole lot of chaos. Wow, I butchered the spelling of chaos there.
How do you spell it?
Chaose. Chaos.
Yeah, chaos, everybody. I'm sorry to any Italian fans.
So they caused a lot of chaos, then mounted a full-scale invasion against the Nautilar for 6 years until more Deepkin arrived, with the Stormcast to assist the siege, finally defeating the Skaven.
So they just literally just killed a bunch of, like, giant octopi and were like, want to see this cool boat? I made it.
You got a bunch of turtles, like giant turtles. There's giant turtles rocking up at your city and you're like, oh, why are there so many turtles? And then you see in the eye that it's hollow and there's a rat man inside. And then...
I think I've had a nightmare exactly like that,
and then a bunch of warp submarines start showing up and you're like, oh, not good. Bad. The rats have invented submersibles.
You're just chilling in the ocean and suddenly rats climb inside you and pilot you. That's the sequel to Ratatouille I didn't know I needed.
Imagine like a nuclear submarine just at the bottom of the ocean and then a much smaller submarine rocks up to it and you're like, what the fuck is that? And then it just boards your ship and a horde of rats start pouring out and they're just like, we live here now. Fuck you. You're like, cool.
Dude, what are you gonna do about it?
What? What? I feel like that's what happened to the Idoneth. I feel like they probably didn't know about the Skaven and then all of a sudden, hey, rats are attacking us under the sea.
Oh god.
And I would imagine like at least a quarter of the submarines are just exploding. Like they aim their spell at it and then it explodes and they're like, oh shit, you're really good with that magic. And it's like, oh, I didn't do anything, it just exploded. And then 10 other warp submarines, warp mercibles explode. And you go, they're shit at engineering. Neat.
I'm just thinking about being on a very intense submarine. You're waiting any day for the codes, terrified, and you just see a little hole in the wall. You poke your head towards it, like fucking Junji E. Like, yeah, you know the one, the Junji E comic of the fucking hole in the wall. Yeah. Not the Amagara fault, the other one.
Oh, no. That's the only one I know. That's the only Junji Ito I've ever read.
That's fair. I think it was Uzumaki or something. Anyway, point is, you just fucking see a tiny hole. You poke your eye through it and you just get poked in the eye by a fucking snout. There's a great John Oliver quote that I was thinking about when I was reading about the Skaven having war mercibles, which is almost airtight is the difference between a submarine and a cool metal tube to die in. And I feel like every single one of those Skaven warp mercibles is almost airtight. They're just suffocating and they're like, so worth it. Oh, no, I hate that eye. I need to do a better eye.
Fun aside, these fights created a strong military bond and understanding between the Idoneth and the Stormcasts. However, they don't get along because the Stormcasts are like, your aggression unsettles us, and you won't tell us shit about yourselves, so we don't like hanging out with you. And they just don't get along.
I don't fucking blame them. Those guys are weird. Like, yeah, you have trauma. We all have trauma. Get over it.
Yeah. But, like, the other forces of order don't even realize just how many Idoneth there are and how many cities they have. They just refuse to tell anyone. It's a real... Hey, where are your cities so we can help you? Why the fuck are you asking? so we can help you. Where the fuck are you asking? What do you want to know? Who are you talking to? Have you met Teclis? Do you know Teclis? Has Teclis put you up to this? I feel like that's every single conversation that goes on with the Deepkin.
We just want to help you. Help what? Help us get killed? How could you? We were relying on you. I thought you were friends. Like
You're
that
not a
one
cop, mate.
paranoid friend.
You have to tell me if you're a cop, mate.
Actually, no, they don't. He's a cop! It is a very excessive green, but
You
I'm
haven't been
rocking with
talking to the cops now, have you, mate? I can't do a Ben Mendelsohn accent.
This turtle is way too green.
So they also only help out if it serves them. They will not join a battle or campaign if they don't have a direct benefit. They also fucking hate the Lumineth, Teclis's next elf project that worked quite well and rarely ever engage with them. The dwarves also hate them because of the whole raiding thing, and they see it as very dishonorable. They, however, do have a very good relationship with the Sylvaneth, Ariel's elves, who, as an aside, baller model. Here's a picture of her model, Corgi.
Oh, hell yeah, that's so cunty. which got bleeped out, sorry. No, she looks like a Kid Icarus, the lady? Green-haired lady.
Aphrodite.
No?
Anyway, Alariel also used her god magic to make all wild animals grow much larger. And
Palutena.
Considering... Who?
Palutena.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, continue. It was bothering me.
Alariel also used her god magic to make all wild animals grow much larger. And considering they ride sea animals into battle, a very useful thing to have happened. Her magic has also made their natural defenses grow in size and density, making it much harder to invade through all of the kelp.
In other words, she can make giant crabs and then everyone would be fucked.
Also, Morathi stole the Akarian lantern. Remember that thing that they...
Come on, you asshole.
So she then used this to become a god. This is when she becomes a god. Which I think was in 2nd edition. It was of Age of Sigmar.
How could she... God, I think I just had a stroke writing that.
The Idoneth tried to get it back in an attack led by High King Volturnos. Put a pin on him. He'll come up later quite a bit. And he's the kind of leader of the Deepkin. But he's not, but he made the call to go public and makes deals, and most of the other Enclaves just fell in line, though not all of them. He's also the last Sithai. So...
Sithai?
Yeah, so the Sithai are the original elves created by Teclis. And the Idoneth Deepkin are their children.
Mazel tov.
All of the Sithai are now dead.
Never mind.
Volturnos is the only one that is still alive.
And poor guy.
Yeah. To a degree, the last of his kind. But the Deepkin attacked Morathi and were doing decently until Morathi joined the battle as a newly minted god. And the Deepkin went, oh, I guess we lost. Guess we dying. Morathi, however, went, here's your lantern back. It's a bit banged up, but it still works. Also, here's a whole heap of Sithai souls that I stole from Slaanesh. We good? The Deepkin, obviously, accepted that.
Sorry, hold on. She was winning, and then she was just like, don't worry, we surrender. Here you go, have some stuff.
She didn't surrender. She just went, I don't want to fight you guys. And they went, we're not in a situation where we can turn down this offer of peace. Because if we fight you, we die. There's a god on your side. You're a god. And then there's us.
Yeah,
God, us. We lose this fight. And you're just being like, I don't want to fight though. Fair.
Yeah, go on, fuck them up. See what happened, and they're dead.
She gave the lantern back, and she gave them a bunch of souls that she stole from Slaanesh.
That's a bit suspicious.
The Deepkin, obviously, accepted the truce, and then they got along quite well. They don't trust each other at all, but they do get along. They, in turn, helped Morathi conquer a Sigmarite city and got all the human souls, making up for all of the Deepkin lost in the battle against Morathi. Morathi's cult also helps the Deepkin on raids, and the Deepkin's involvement with Morathi is also top secret. No one knows because it's a real bad look.
Yeah, we get assistance from these underwater elves that are super evil. Hey, where are you going? Why are you calling... Why are you calling Teclis?
Technically, Morathi's elves aren't evil. They're still technically on the side of order. They just have been increasingly doing their own thing.
Good for them.
Fighting more people who they're supposed to be allied with.
God forbid elves have hobbies.
But, so, Black Panther 2, right? One of my favorite scenes in that movie is just them in Atlantis. I really like underwater civilizations and underground civilizations, which brings us to their cities. Because their cities are so deep, they manage to be relatively unscathed by the Age of Chaos, allowing them to grow and flourish in a time where every other non-chaos was stuck at best in small, isolated villages. They used magic and music to shape coral into buildings. They even have a city called Galanar, built on the top of a great scaphodon, a continental-sized crustacean or continental-sized crustaceans, there's more than one of them, that trudge along the seafloor of the mortal realms.
In other words,
here's a picture of that. This is the only other picture I saved.
Oh, that's cool as shit.
It is cool as shit. So, the palaces of the Achelian float above the city as a testament to their purity. You know that dream you have where you run real slow?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they do that. The Deepkin use something called the Ether Sea. It's deep sea magic to make the world invisible water. So the people they fight move as though they are underwater, and their vision blurs, and they occasionally just walk into pockets of intense pressure and get crunched.
Fucking...
Yeah. Just imagine you're sprinting into battle, and then all of a sudden you're running in a slog, and the guy in front of you just becomes a ball. And you're like, shit.
What is this witchery?
So, while the Idoneth move with grace and speed that they would on land, like while they're in these fights, while everyone is trudging through water, it also allows their sea animals that they fight with to breathe and also fly. So
flying quotation marks, of course.
Well, technically they're not in water. They've just made like magical water, but like humans,
they're in water, but not.
Yeah, they're still like breathing oxygen, and like they don't require any. Like it's still normal air. It just turns the air into functioning like waves, like water. But for some reason, it also allows their sea animals to breathe because it's functioning like water. But no one's like suffocating because they're like, I can't breathe because I'm gulping up water. They're just in the air. But like, imagine for a moment, you're in a village and then you see out on the beach some guy on a top of a shark. And you're like, shit, that's weird. There's a guy on top of the shark. And then the shark starts swimming into the air and just starts swimming towards you through the air. And you're like,
I should run.
This, shit, fuck. And then you try to run away. And then it's like you're trudging through like the water at a beach. And you're like, fuck. As the shark very quickly makes its way towards you. And then they bonk you on the head, and then you wake up underwater.
And now you are a water person. Congratulations.
No, now your soul is about to get eaten.
Oh, that's not how mermaids are in fairy tales. Yet another reason why Warhammer is so cruel.
So they also have the siren-esque magic that just erases the memories of the people that they fight, replacing everything with just the feeling of dread, which keeps the Enclaves secret. But the Ethersea also encases their cities in proverbial bubbles. It's not like exactly bubbles, but it's described as like kind of like bubbles, but not really. They're not like actual bubbles. And so they don't actually swim and breathe underwater. They just walk around and breathe regular air. And it also protects against the increased pressure from underwater, which A, sparing their bodies the pressure, and 2, prevents them from getting high as fuck from the nitrogen. That isn't a part of the battle tome, that's just some real world knowledge.
That would be terrifying. A bunch of high mermaids coming to kill you, and they fucking body you in seconds.
Diving is one of the most terrifying things in the world. I don't know if we've discussed this. I used to dive. I got my diving license. I know how to dive. I had to do training. I had diving equipment. Then I had a prophetic dream of my death, and it almost came true. It was a whole thing. And
we're just gonna gloss over that?
Yes.
No, continue. What?
Okay. Will I put this in end of video content or?
Doesn't matter. I need to know.
Well, this won't be end of video content, but we'll talk about it at the end of the video, and then we'll get to end of video content. If you want to hear the time where I had my worldview permanently altered and I see time differently to cope with my own witnessing my own death in the future, stay tuned. Anyway.
Jesus H. Christ.
But my point with that is one of the things that kills people underwater diving is nitrogen narcosis, which is because the increased pressure of your diving, your oxygen tank, you're breathing in more oxygen at an increased pressure rate, which you're not actually breathing oxygen, you're breathing air. So it has the proper chemical composition that is in the atmosphere, which means it contains nitrogen. Nitrogen gets you high as fuck. The average composition of nitrogen in the air is perfectly fine to consume without it affecting you. However, when you're consuming that immense amount, it starts to get into your lungs and your bloodstream, and then you start to get high, which is why you can only spend so much time underwater. You can get specialized equipment that is pure oxygen, so you can increase the amount of time that you can swim underwater. If anyone's underwater for like over an hour, they're breathing pure oxygen. It's still not great to be underwater for that long because of the increased pressure and the effects that it has on your body. But the reason why you can swim for like 30 minutes, a meter underwater, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if you're 6 meters underwater, you can swim for 5 minutes. It is because it's taking in the math of the nitrogen. And if you get too much nitrogen, you get high. And once you're high, you start doing dumb shit. Like being like, why the fuck is there a thing in my mouth? And then you take out your respirator and it's a respirator.
Sorry.
And then you suffocate and die. Or you're dive because you have a diving buddy, you dive with someone else and you go, why the fuck is a thing in his mouth? And then you try and take the respirator out of his mouth.
So underwater psychosis.
Yeah, one of the things that you learn diving is how all the horrible ways you can die. And it's like, cool. You have to take regular breaks when you're swimming up and exhale and then swim up, because if you just swim directly up, your lungs explode.
Yeah, I did know that part, but still, it's fucking... Not to mention the bends.
The bends... As far as I'm aware, the bends is actually nitrogen narcosis. I remember it not being what I thought it was.
Well, I remember it was in an episode of House that I recently saw. That's all I had to contribute.
No, so it's not nitrogen narcosis, but it's similarly related. So it's the dissolved gases emerging from a solution as bubbles inside the body tissue during decompression. So it is the extra chemicals.
Yeah, the nerve pain.
Yeah, as they expand in your body, that's also part of the reason why you stop as you ascend, is you give the time for the oxygen to, or not the oxygen, but the compressed air to decompress and repressurize, and then you can leave without getting bubbles in your bloodstream and dying of a fucking air embolism. Diving is scary. And my prophetic almost seeing my own death is not one of the 2 times I lost a battle with the sea and why I don't enter the sea anymore. That was 2 different times. One, I drowned. I was actually genuinely drowning and was actively trying desperately not to pass out before I could get into a position where I could actually spew all of the water that is currently in my lungs out and take a breath of oxygen. And the other time, I just got pulled into the sea and had to swim back.
No, thank you. I can't even fucking remember how to swim. It's been that long since I was last.
Yeah, I've always been a competent swimmer, and I one thing that's drilled into your head in Australia is beach safety. So I very quickly identified I was in a rip. I understood how to get out of the rip, but I identified I was in a rip once I realized I was out in the sea, and went, oh, I'm a bit far out. I should swim back, and swum for like a minute, and went, oh, I'm still in the same location. I'm in a rip. Neat. So then I swam sideways. Technically, I swam diagonally because I didn't want to get even further out into the sea because I was really fucking far out. And I had a plan to get back, which was catch waves. And I was at the point where waves had stopped forming. Okay. So I had to keep like swimming diagonally so that like I kept there. So then once I got into a point where I could move forward, I would just ride a wave and then float while I waited for another wave to form, and then ride a wave to float. All in all, I was out in sea for like 30 minutes and then I collapsed on the floor. It was a very miserable experience. And that was the second time. That was the same week I almost drowned. And I went, you know what? Nah, I'm done with the sea. I'm done. I don't need the sea anymore. I like looking at the sea. I don't need to swim anymore. Fuck the sea. I can take the hint. The sea tried to kill me twice in 1 week. I took the hint. I got you.
What did you do to Poseidon, man? Why is he so pissed?
Fucking no. So
God, you know what was that Greek story where it's like he had to do his fucking journey and then he died at the end because Poseidon was like, you know what, I fucking hate you and it's time for you to die.
Odysseus?
Yes,
I don't remember him dying at the end of that story.
I don't know. I was listening to a fucking. I heard like a few songs from the epic musical, I think is what it was.
Anyway.
Yeah, irrelevant.
They're inside their enclaves. They also have coral reefs called Corellium. These function as sort of soul graveyards tended by the soul wardens.
Soul wardens.
Yep. Soul renders collect the souls of dead Idoneth and inter them into the Corellium so that their souls are safe from the possibility of being consumed by Slaanesh. They can, however, summon these souls in a fight in battles, but they're very protective. Sorry, but they don't like doing it because of the risk of losing the souls. Yeah. And they take the form of the elf god, that the elf god of the sea that they were taught to worship. They're not the embodiment. Yeah, they're not the embodiment of the god. They just take the physical appearance of that god. And that model that you saw earlier, that's one of those soul ghosts taking the form of the god.
For context, it was what model was it?
I don't remember its name, but it's I'll post the picture in the video.
Yeah. I just love how the cape looks.
So what was I?
Cape.
In general, they are super protective of the coral, and if anyone steals any, they will hunt them down to get it back. The souls they got from Marathi went into the coral, and then Alariel's magic that made all of nature grow bigger did something to the coral. They don't know what, but it does sparkle now. They don't know why it sparkles. They don't know what it did, but the coral now sparkles.
In other words, shiny coral. That's a 1 in 3,000.
So, you know how I said they were able to flourish and thrive during the Age of Chaos?
Mm-hmm.
That's not entirely true. While they were unbothered by chaos, there are things in the dark.
Yeah, like anglerfish.
Large sea monsters waiting to kill anything that stumbles out of the safety of the cities. However, quote, even these paled in comparison to the nameless slithering horrors of the deepest reaches, truly ancient entities filled with a terrible, insatiable hunger.
Now you're speaking my language.
And for a brief period of time, after they fled Teclis, the Deepkin engaged in a war with the Apollon, formless entities with malign psychic powers that resided in the deep chasms of the ocean. They were defeated, but the war cost the lives of many Sithai, and to speak of them is forbidden. It's about all the information that we have on them.
Why does it always happen? You can't talk about this one or you're a fucking idiot. Is that seriously all they ever do? It's just like, okay, this person pissed me off, so their name is now struck from history, and if you speak it, you're joining them.
Yep.
Fucking petty.
Anyway, here are some things that were worth mentioning, but I couldn't figure out where to put them in the video. The Deepkin have magic that puts people to sleep. Never mind, I already talked about that.
Scratch that.
Remember when the Skaven Norhold into Shaish and the sea spilt into Blight City, filling it with zombies?
Mm-hmm.
And that drained away the ocean, revealing to Nagash that the sea is full of elves.
just like you like cleaning up a mess on the table. It's just like, what the fuck?
They literally unplugged the bathtub that is an ocean in Shaish. All of the water drained out. Nagash looked into the pit and went, "There's some fucking elves there. What the fuck?" And then he then orders the oceans of Shaish to be dredged. So they are currently dredging up all of the ocean. The Deepkin got rocked by the necrocake. Okay. I'm still fucking it up. The Deepkin got rocked by the necroquake, but seemed to handle it well. However, they also sent armies to the coast to aid land dweller colonies, because if they die, they lose their raiding quarry.
Get fucking bodied.
When Be'lakor created the Soulstorm things to fuck with the Stormcasts, the Chaos Rain corrupted the oceans, which weakened the veil between reality and the warp, so now, sometimes, demons spawn in the ocean and have destroyed several colonies.
You saying that now makes me have a headcanon that in the game Dredge, it's literally just that.
So, also, the Deepkin ride sea beasts into battle. It's kind of like a big thing, they're bond beasts, but not enough that was there, like, anywhere in what I was reading to, like, fit it in. So, in case anyone is wondering why I never really brought it up, here's me bringing up the bond beasts. They ride sharks and barracudas. I couldn't remember the names, so I called them long bitey fish, and I called barracudas long bitey fish in my initial script, and then I fucking Googled long bitey fish, and eventually I found barracuda. I'm like, that's it. That's what I was talking about.
I can't even judge. That's 100% what they are.
And deep mares, which are horses of the sea, not to be confused with seahorses. You ruined my fucking joke.
Ha!
Fuck you.
Just cut my joke.
I do that quite frequently.
It's like, oh, I'm fucking sick of hearing her voice. I'm just gonna cut this.
Sometimes we'll make two jokes over each other and I have to just listen to them back to back and decide which one is the better joke.
And that's why I never have any good jokes on the show.
I think once it was yours. And the only reason it was yours was because I flubbed my joke. I really fucked the execution. Whereas your joke came out clearly and I'm like, my joke was better, but it didn't. It's not funny because I butcher it.
Yes, I almost said victory by attrition.
So that about does it for today's episode on the Deepkin. I don't know how to end videos good, so I'm just going to give some thoughts. So if you're familiar with 40k, these are obviously the equivalent of the Drukhari, the Dark Elder. I was excited with the researching this, and I reading very quickly lost interest because I was like, oh, I guess we just doing Dark Elder again. But once again, quickly found interest again and really enjoyed it. Probably my aforementioned love of undersea civilizations. They are also very much different from the Dark Elder in the sense that their rating is only for the soul transference and not for the whole torture, rape, and turning people into furniture.
Excuse me?
And and it also stresses that they don't feel good about what they do, unlike the Drukhari. Though I did see somewhere that they've kind of fleshed out the Drukhari in a way that aren't just like young the Drukhari just don't yes, they enjoy it all the time. Young Drukhari don't want to be rape elves and have to be groomed into enjoying atrocities. Whereas the Deepkin, even the eldest among them, are very much no, this is a horrible thing, but it needs to be done. And it adds sort of like a nuance to them. Also, the Corellium thing is lifted straight from Spirit Stone of the Elder, infusing souls into a resource to protect the souls of this from Slaanesh. That's exactly what the Eldar do. And like, I looked at their models before this, and some of them are decent. One of them is decent. And some of them are, like, good in general. They really need new models. They have a very small range and a lot of promise, but the execution doesn't really fulfill the promise. Kind of like the Dark Elder.
You can leave the Dark Elder out of this. That being said, I've already forgotten everything about them. I apologize.
Okay, so we're on to story time about my prophesized death.
Yeah! Yay!
So as I said, I was diving, and I got new gear, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't sleep the night before diving. For no reason. I've dove many times up until that point, perfectly fine. But I just could not sleep. And every single time I would fall asleep, I would have a dream where I would be in the ocean and my oxygen, because you have an oxygen meter so you can see how much oxygen you have, would rapidly drain because there was a hole, like a tiny microscopic, imperceivable hole in my oxygen tube that was plugged into my tank.
Jesus.
And I would wake up, couldn't sleep, fall asleep, have that dream again. That was the whole night. I then went diving the next day, very tired, and I couldn't shake that dream from my head. Mm-hmm. So I inspected the tube, like ran my fingers down, inspected it as well as I could. There was nothing. There was no tube. Like there was no hole, nothing wrong. And I talked to the diving instructors who were much more experienced than me, and I was just like, look, I feel like there's something wrong with my diving equipment. Like, can you check it? And they checked it, and they were like, yep, it's fine. It's fine. There's nothing wrong. Like, we checked it. We checked it. It's fine. And we were supposed to go out into the sea. And I was just like, no, I don't. It's wrong. There's something wrong with my diving equipment. So I went out because we're at the beach. I went into the beach, put like the like jacket and everything under the water. So it was all submerged in the water, pulled out my oxygen meter and just watched it drain rapidly.
Oh shit.
And I took it out, went back to the diving instructor, showed them my oxygen tank, which was full, put it underwater for a minute, and it's now like missing 1/10 of its water.
Jesus.
And or its oxygen. And I went, there's something wrong with my tank. And so they got a tub full of water, put it down, submerged my like whole thing in this clear tub, and sure enough, there was a tiny microscopic hole. They couldn't see on the tube. You could not see it, but you could see the bubbles coming out from it.
Jesus.
And I was like, fuck. If I admittedly probably wouldn't have died because I would have been watching it, but I would have run out and like you dive with a buddy who has a spare oxygen so they can breathe. Mm-hmm. You know, I wouldn't have been in such a dire situation, but I would have been in a very dire situation. Not great, but I wouldn't have died.
Yeah.
But the fact that I had a prophetic dream about my equipment failing in a super specific way, and then my equipment failed in that exact way, fucked me up in a way that I have never recovered from. That the fact that I foresaw my own death, and then it almost came true in the exact way that I foresaw it.
Yeah, no, that feels like some sort of gift of fear shit. I
got pretty good for a while. Look, I'm not crazy. I want to stress this enough. I'm not crazy. But I got really good for a while because I worked casual, predicting when I would work just on a vibe. 9 times out of 10, if I was like, I don't think I'm working tomorrow, I wouldn't be working. And if I was like, no, I feel like I'm working tomorrow, I would be working. Just no rhyme or reason. There was no like educated guess. It was just, I had a feeling that I was working. So I was like, I guess I'll go to bed early. I guess I can't stay up late at night. It did suck when I got it wrong, and I'm like, oh, I can go to bed at 2 because I'm not working tomorrow. And then I woke up and then at like 6:30 with a text being like, hey, can you come into work today? And I'm like, fuck, that sucked.
You're the main character, man.
Yeah. Anyway, that's that. Welcome to Che shares his gifts of prophecy. I have since lost my my gifts of prophecy. I can't vibe things anymore. I can't predict when and how things are going to happen. But anyway, I'm pretty shit at the whole call to action thing. So please like the video if you liked it, and please comment as well. Engagement feeds the algorithm and gets us in front of more Ratmen. Even if the comment is just like, cool vid, or nice pictures, or you
Corgi is so annoying.
dumb. You sound dumb. What kind of accent even is that? Or what the fuck is that vision shit? What the fuck are you talking about? You're fucking crazy. Yeah, I'm not crazy, but yeah. Anyway, thank you. Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Bye-bye. I don't, similar story. My dad was telling me about how he used to live in a share house, and one of the guys he used to live with just real quiet, kept to himself, never talked to anyone. And he was an alright dude, but he was always just kind of had an off vibe. And then one day he just disappeared and never came back. And then like 4 days later, the police raided their share house and went into his room and just started pulling out like machine guns from his room. like this was before we'd instituted gun control, but it was still like highly illegal guns that he had. And he was just like, oh, who the fuck was I living with?
There goes the neighborhood and our guns.
Some fucking bikey.
For further context, before we started recording, I was actually watching Doctor Who, which... yeah.
Specifically about the River Song arc. You're watching the River Song arc where they absolutely continue to make fucking poor decisions with that character. Amazing concept for a character. Absolutely arse execution. One of the worst executions of a concept I have ever seen in any show. Anyway, moving on.
What, you don't like how she had to kill Hitler?
It's not even that. It's just, it's everything about her. Everything about her portrayal is annoying. Everything about her character history is annoying. Everything about her is annoying, and I hate it, apart from the initial concept. The first episode that she's in, pretty good. Her character was really good, until they went, hey, what if we made her a bit like more wacky bonkers, rather than someone that's more like somber? And like, I get it. She realized that she's about to die. Yeah. She was like, oh, cool, I'm dying here. Because she had the foreknowledge to know what the situation was. But fucking stupid. I'm ranting on something that will probably get cut out anyway.
Well, not for me. We've got a good postie. Ben's a good man.
Yeah, that's because you live in the country.
Yeah, but I thought you said I live in a country, and I was about to say, so do you, or do you float these days?
You know every single person in your town.
Actually, no.
You have, I would imagine, 1 degree of separation from everyone in your town.
Like, I wouldn't have the faintest clue. The only thing I know is that
if you know the woman that runs that fucking bar, cafe thing, that charges way too much for food,
that's because they changed owners recently.
Did they change owners while I was there? Because
No, that was a newer thing. But Dean makes great burgers now.
It was like $20 for a burger. I was like, get fucked.
Yeah, well, small towns. You can't exactly buy McDonald's. You just have to buy sadness. Anyway. Then again, dinner was like $48 today for 2 burgers, 4 dim sims, a chocolate thick shake, and the energy drink that is pumping through my veins.
See, that's at least cheaper. But like when my wife and I went into that shop and we're like, oh, we'll get something for lunch. We looked at the prices and I was just like, I'll get a coffee, I guess. And they'll charge me like $8 for a coffee, which is stupid. Like, I get, like to some degree, things are cheaper in the country. And to another degree, things are more expensive in the country. I was at a town called Banana, and there was a single restaurant. And it was like, I guess I'm paying $40 for dinner. Otherwise, I'm not eating dinner. There's no food. There's no shops. The only shop is closed, and the only place to get food is a restaurant, and they're charging me $40 for a pasta.
Supply and demand, baby. You demand it, they supply it for crazy prices. Or however that idiom goes. Just exactly, not at all like how I just said.
Yeah, were you born pre 9/11?
Holy shit, I was.
Huh.
Does that mean by being
end of video
born,
content. I don't remember 9/11. I was alive when it happened. Granted, I was like 5, but I don't know when I became aware of 9/11 ever happening. At some point, I just became aware of it's a thing. I've heard my dad's story about 9/11, where he woke up my mum and just said, like, something terrible has happened, and then they went and turned on the TV and watched the coverage. But, like, 9/11 happened while I was alive and conscious. My first memory was I was 6 months old. It's a thing. But, like, the 6 months or a year and a half. I think I was a year and a half years old. I was in a car crash. That's why I remember it. Anyway.
What? Yeah, 9/11 and all that, but car crash?
Look, to be fair, when you're in a car hit by another car, you remember it more as a child than a plane hit some towers on a TV, and I didn't really have the understanding of what a plane was.
Or what fucking the Pentagon was either.
Yeah, well, look, I didn't even... I learned about the Pentagon being hit during 9/11 maybe when I was like 13.
I didn't learn about it until the fucking only place on...
So when I was in high school, right, there was a guy I was friends with, and someone made a 9/11 joke, because that's pretty par for the course in Australia. We're so detached from it, and then we're also just young, so it happened when we were like barely cognizant, and it was just like, it always felt way in the past while it happened while we were still alive. It was way in the past because we just never remembered it happening. So it was like ancient history. Yeah, and then it also wasn't America. Like, we're not America. So, you know, and someone made a 9/11 joke, and he was like, "What's that from?" And it was me and like 5 other dudes. And we all turned at it and looked at him, and we were like, "What do you mean, what's that from?" And he's like, people keep referencing 9/11. Is it from like Call of Duty or like a movie or a TV show? And we all just like, there was silence for maybe 5 seconds. And I was like, nah, dude, it's from real life. And then everyone else was like, do you not know about 9/11? Do you not know that happened? Why do you think there's a war in Afghanistan? And he was like, I don't know, man.
To be fair,
it was so weird. To be fair, he was 15, and you don't know about 9/11? What the fuck? And I'm going to add a really long bleep here, Corgi, so act like I said something horrible. Fishman is my co-host, Corgi.